Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to the channel. So this is not an advice video. This is really the furthest thing from an advice video. It is more of a brain dump, in the moment research process, all the different thoughts that are going through my head about one topic. And that is the topic of how in the world am I going to teach my child to learn how to write? So stay tuned while we chat. Homeschool mom to homeschool mom, grab yourself a tasty drink because this might be a bit of an interesting video. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you've been coming for a while. Like I said, this video is going to be all about my process as I have been learning and researching about what it's going to take to teach my kids to write. And so if you are in a similar place as I am and this is interesting to you, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to. But just know ahead of time that this is going to be a little bit informal. This is honestly just me learning a bit and sharing it with you, just kind of bringing you along for the journey as I'm processing some things. And so in these videos in particular, I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know down below, especially if you are ahead of me in homeschooling, because my kiddos are only 8, 7, 4, and 4. So by no means are we in the season of writing. That's why this is not an advice video. This is me preparing for the next big season of teaching. I feel like the younger years are more the teaching to read, but after that, I feel like the next big hurdle is teaching them to write. So that is what is in my brain. And so I have been reading a lot of good books and thinking about a lot of things. So I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to share with you what I have found, learned, all those things. I guess I should start with kind of what is my question, what has led me to this research rabbit trail. And my question is really how do kids learn how to write? What are some cues for developmental readiness? When can you know that they're ready? And then what are some techniques to help them with that? Because honestly, I feel like this process is now pretty much from learning to read till the end of high school, this process of learning to write. But me as a homeschool mom, I'm guiding it. And so I would like to know a little bit more what I'm doing, to be honest. And so I've just been in it. I've been researching things well, how was writing taught in the past? Or how do they teach it in public schools? What are some lessons that can be learned from all over the place? I am not taking anything off the table. This is just how I start researching. I love research. I get a lot of joy out of this and a lot of fulfillment. So that's really my question, or a set of questions, if you will. And now I want to move on to some resources that I have found that I am looking through and reading and trying to comprehend what they are telling me. And most of these are books. And I will include all the resources down below in case they're of use to you. So in my research, I have found really 3 areas that seem a little bit different. And mind you, these are areas that I am drawn to. So one, I'm drawn to understanding the public school because my kids have to do standardized testing. We live in a state where they have to do it. And I have found that it's better for me just to be aware of that and understand those expectations, not so that I can teach to the test. I don't think that's necessary, but so that I have an awareness of that so that I can include some of that in my teaching. So public school teaching. And then I have also kind of found I have a number of resources, which I'll share with you just in a second, that fall more in the classical Charlotte Mason kind of realm, which honestly, when it comes to writing, I feel like they have similar techniques or methods involved in those 2 ways of thinking. Then I have this more hodgepodge group of resources, which this is where things like Brave Writer fall out, even Sunlight. So you have a lot of Ruth Beechek, as well as Sally Clarkson, all fit more into what I feel like I would call a natural style for teaching writing. So those 3 kind of big categories are what I have found that I am drawn to. So I'm going to go through them a bit. I'm going to start with what I have for public school. You guys, if you haven't picked up this book, it is a very useful book. And not because I want to follow the public school system. That's not it. I like it because it helps bring awareness to expectations of certain grade levels. Regardless of if you want to stay on grade level or not, it really helps out. For instance, I have a 2nd grader and a 3rd grader, and you can go, I actually have it marked, to the section in 2nd grade that is labeled writing. And then you can read off, they have a number of different points. Like in second grade, they're experimenting with a range of writing projects, including short stories, poems, nonfiction reports, journal entries, and letter writing. Also knowing how to correctly format a friendly letter and recognizing complete and incomplete sentences. So it goes on from there. And that's helpful. And then, for instance, I would switch to grade 3 because that's what my son is in, and I can see the differences. I can see how the expectations have shifted. And what I do like about this is that I was able to see some of these areas of expectation per grade in the standardized testing, because we did do kind of a trial run on standardized testing last year. And I was able to see actually that they do include a lot of that stuff. There was a whole friendly letters section. And so it's nice to have this because it gives me a little bit of guidance for what to expect come standardized testing. But I am definitely not drawn to teaching that way. Like, it's similar to what I would say like Abeka. Like, I looked through the Abeka writing instruction in all the Abeka materials I have, and I'm not really a big fan of it, but it could just be that it really wouldn't fit my kids and how I feel like they would respond to that really writing prompt heavy approach to teaching writing. So that's where I'm for that. And then you move on to the other two big sets. So it's like you have the classical and Charlotte Mason approach. And so I have lots of good resources for that. So this is a very popular resource, The Well-Trained Mind, A Classical Guide to Education at Home. This is an amazing resource. It's an amazing resource. It has so much information, so many recommendations on curriculum, as well as timing of when to teach what, at what grade, things like that. This is a wealth of information. Now, it's also useful when I'm asking the question of writing. So this is actually why I love having all these resources at my disposal, because then I have a question and I can flip to the section on writing. And this is Susan Weisbauer who wrote this book. And so what she has for writing, especially when you're talking like the grammar stage, so that elementary time frame, is talking copywork, dictation, and narration. And I have used her Writing with Ease curriculum, and that's really what it is. And then if you flip to the next stage, so the logic stage, that's when she starts to recommend like writing with skill, where then they take those skills that were developed in Writing with Ease, and now they take it a step further where the kids are actually starting to craft their own writing, not just copy and dictate and narrate. And so why I have put classical education, or at least the Well-Trained Mind version of classical education, in with Charlotte Mason is because that's very similar. That is, if you read any of Charlotte Mason's stuff, which only have the first volume, Home Education, but I have a tough time reading it. So I really like this one when it comes to me asking questions about Charlotte Mason. So this is the Charlotte Mason Companion by Karen Andriola. This is wonderful, and it also talks about writing in here, and it really talks about it in that same sense of narration is the beginning of writing. So you're really doing that oral narration. So they are being taught to organize their thoughts in a way that will lead eventually to compositions. And that's the same here. You can read more in this one. This is by Karen Glass, Know and Tell, The Art of Narration. I really recommend this if you are looking for more information on narration. There's wonderful examples as well as wonderful research on the benefits of narration. But really within both of these, the Well-Trained Mind as well as Charlotte Mason, it really leans heavily on narration and copywork in those early years, and then shifting to dictation when you get to like age 10 or so. But from my understanding is there really isn't a push for composition at those ages. Time is really spent more in just kind of diving into good literature and being able to see sentence structures and grammar and all of that through the writing. But to my understanding, not doing too much writing on their own in those early years. And know that that is my focus because that is the age of my kids. At some point, I will be more interested in expectations of writing for a junior high student, but that's not where I'm at. So I'm really looking at these programs kind of with that specific narrow lens, if you will. So that's what I learned, and I am attracted to that idea. I'm attracted to narration, and especially after reading this book, I feel like this book made me be like, oh, I should just do this. This is all we should focus on. But where I struggle with this approach is I have a tougher time with my base knowledge of like things like grammar and things to point out in sentences and in the copywork, that I feel unsupported by that idea without a like solid curriculum to help me point out what to point out, if that makes sense. So I love that. I love the idea of narration and copywork. I just feel like I need just a little bit more holding my hand, because I do feel like this style, the kind of third style, that idea of teaching language arts, really the whole of language arts through more of a natural approach, is appealing to me too. I just also need the hand holding. I feel like the natural approach is very Charlotte Mason. It is a very well-trained mind. They all have that natural approach to writing. I just really feel like I resonate a little bit more with these resources. So the resources I have to share with you, first I'll share The Writer's Jungle. So I don't even think you can buy this anymore. It is from Brave Writer, written by Julie Bogart. She just came out with something new. I don't know what it's called, but I can pop up a picture of it. But this is kind of the old version of it, and I don't think there's quite enough new stuff for me to worry about it, or at least not right now, because what I wanted to get from her stuff was really what to do in these younger years, because her focus is also copywork, dictation, narration, all of those things, but she is also like a published writer. So when I think of Brave Writer and Julie Bogart, I think of writing curriculum, not like language arts curriculum. I think of writing. And so I'm drawn to her to kind of understand, like, how do I do this natural approach to teaching language arts, but really honing in on the writing. And so I have learned quite a bit from this. I only printed out the first couple chapters because that was really all that so far was useful to me. It's just certain things like, how does she approach narration? Narration is very much a part of the Brave Writer Language Arts program. And it just is this idea that it is an assessment. It's a way for us to assess kind of what they are taking in. And so in here, she talks about like reading good writing. And at this point, your job is to point out the good writing. And this again is where I can really get behind that idea. Like, I'm like, oh, I love that, but how? And I feel like I keep stumbling over that, where then I just want to reach for a curriculum and be like, well, I need someone to tell me what part of the copy work we need to focus on. But that's really what she's saying, is focus on certain parts. And then she goes into what else to do. So it's like, do copy work 4 to 5 times a week. Do reverse dictation, do French style dictation. So all these things that are very much Brave Writer, but I loved reading about it in the Writer's Jungle because it helped me understand, because I have downloaded a DART program from Brave Writer, and to be honest, I found it a little bit confusing. I feel like with that program, you need to kind of commit to like years of it so that you will eventually get all of those grammar concepts and things like that. But to just do almost like a one-off DART, like just one book, didn't feel like I had enough. Oh, but I do like her stuff, and I always kind of come back to it. I feel like Brave Writer and Sunlight are quite similar in that, and I think it's because they're both inspired by Ruth Beechick. In addition to Sally Clarkson is very much inspired by Ruth Beechick. So I was like, well, okay, let me just pick up some Ruth Beechick resources. So I just did. I'm like, the thing is, if the natural approach to teaching writing is really spearheaded by Ruth Beechick, I should just read her work. And that actually has been very helpful. And especially this first one, because this is the 3 R's, and this is for grades K through 3. But then she also has another book, which I was able to find used off of Amazon, which is called You Can Teach Your Child Successfully. And this is for grades 4 to 8. And it really has everything in here, you guys. It has math, it has spelling, writing, all sorts of things. And so it's really, really helpful, especially if you want to kind of understand a curriculum. What I feel like is you could honestly pick up these and you could have your own language arts program. It explains it to that level. But again, I keep running into the problem of like, all right, I like the idea behind this stuff. Like for instance, it has in here some grade expectations, grade level guidelines. And so for like 2nd grade, it has expectations for oral language, listening, writing, punctuation, capitalization, grammar, usage, vocab, study skills. So it gives examples of some expectations for that. So I like that. It's similar to this book, which gives just expectations for grade levels, which is just nice for someone like me who just does not feel very confident in how to teach this. And to give a couple examples of how to do a lesson for writing, it gives some ideas. It says, like, for instance, write a sentence from slow dictation, getting all the help necessary to make it correct. And then to move on, write an unfamiliar sentence from dictation, compare, write again. Another example could be study a paragraph, write as it is dictated, sentence by sentence in normal expression, and compare and correct errors. So that is a lot of that idea of copywork and dictation. But then if you get a little bit harder or more difficult, here's an example. Make notes on a passage of writing that you like and put the notes away for a few days. Then try to rewrite the passage from your notes, compare with the model. What did you do well? Where will you do better next time? Repeat using the same model or a new one. So that to me feels more like how they used to teach writing. Like they used to teach it with good literature, and then the idea of like studying it and trying it yourself and then checking yourself and then studying it, trying yourself and checking yourself to just slowly improve, especially if you are at the base already using good literature. And so that makes complete sense to me, and I feel like that is exactly what a lot of these programs are getting at. All the Well-Trained Mind, all the Charlotte Mason, Brave Writer, Sunlight is kind of this idea of natural learning. So then, okay, what I struggle with though is like, how do I make this idea happen in my homeschool? Because I feel like I could adopt like the Brave Writer, and I feel like I'd have to jump all in with that, which part of me is tempted, to be honest. I'm tempted to do that because I like both the writing arm of that as well as kind of those DART literature guides that explain more of like spelling and copywork and all that stuff. But I just struggle a bit with the way it's written. And that is no shade against Brave Writer. I just feel like I need information presented in slightly different ways. And so that brings me to kind of like that Sunlight idea. And Sunlight is very similar, and it does have more hand-holding, and you do a lot of copywork and dictation, and you do copywork application, which is looking at the copywork and trying to pull out grammar and different things like that. So I like all that. So I like the fact that I have chosen Sunlight to do it. Where I feel like I still have doubts, it's like I can cover like adjectives and descriptive words in one lesson, and then does that mean I should be trying to like draw their attention to that in future lessons? Like, how does this spiral back? How do I bring back the review and make sure they're remembering what we learned in week 2 when we're all the way at week 26, if that makes sense? I feel like I want to be able to kind of do that, and I'm not sure if I could do that well. Okay, here's another example. I will read stuff by Sally Clarkson, which I've been in a serious Sally Clarkson mood lately. So this is Educating the Wholehearted Child. I love her stuff. I love their parenting tips. I love reading about their homeschooling and their heart in their homeschooling, but I always feel like I don't have the right personality to do it that way, to do it kind of off the cuff without organization. I feel like I need to read it with more of like the inspiration in mind instead of the like modeling and copying, if that makes sense, because I just don't feel like I can quite handle it. So I'm not sure if that was at all helpful, or if anybody can even relate. Please let me know if you can relate to me on this and just trying to think about how I do it. I think at the heart of it, I am just a little cautious of just like trusting a curriculum, of just being led by a curriculum and hoping that it gets me where I want to be in the end, instead of researching how best to teach a certain subject, then using a curriculum, and then I just have more knowledge while I'm using that curriculum that I can adjust it, or I can watch for these things, or I can bring in review, or different things like that. I just feel like that gives me a firmer foundation to then use a curriculum, if that makes sense. My gosh, I realize this has gone a little bit long, so I'm going to wrap it up here, but I hope it was interesting and helpful. And again, these are the kind of videos I really want your input on. I want your input on your experience, your thoughts, what you've researched, resources you have found helpful. Let me know down below, because honestly, I love researching. This is honestly pretty fun for me, and maybe I'll even make a whole series out of different topics within homeschool that I am researching. If that would be at all interesting to you guys, I might do that. But I'm going to end the video here, and I will wish you a good day and see you guys in the next homeschool video. All right, guys, take care. Bye.